Hi, and welcome to another virtual water cooler live. My name's Steve Wright, and it's my little corner of the interweb on LinkedIn. Also goes to my Facebook group as well. Um, and yeah, I just had a guest join me just before in the green room. Hopefully, he's going to come back. Tony Pincham. Tony, if you're there, um, hit me up. Give me a thumbs up or an update. See if you can get back in. But yeah, essentially, this is interesting. It's just as I say, it's a space in the corner of the web that is literally, in my mind, a water cooler. I just walk up and stand by this virtual faucet or the break room. I guess in the UK we don't have water coolers as much as sort of the break room, and just hang out and chat. No real agenda. Sometimes there's things on our hearts and our minds, things that are either current, recent, impactful, business related or not. That's fine. It's really just a space where we just kind of hang out. So I'm hoping that we'll get a few people joining me, but if not, then I'll just talk for a little bit and I'll go back to I'll go back to what I was doing before I walked up at the water cooler. But it isn't always an interesting space. I always share about sort of the nervousness and the sort of the trepidation of just showing up live. And if you're on social media spaces platforms and people are saying, oh, just you got to go live or you got to show up, it's sometimes easier said than done. Um, and and although I do this weekly, uh, it always throws me. So, but I have got a dear friend in the green room. I'm going to put her on. Here she is. Annie in a hat.
Annie in the hat.
You always remember Annie. You remind me of Annie Oakley.
Oh, she was evil, I think, wasn't she?
I don't know. I just remember the movie. Is it Doris Day?
Annie, get your gun.
Annie get your gun. That's right.
Well, I do have a couple of those, but I'm not going to brandish them.
There you go. There you go. Tony, meet Annie.
Hi, Annie.
Hi, Tony.
Just adjusting, testing, and adjusting. I'm on a different browser now. I just was here and went.
Oh, okay.
Ago.
Yes. I saw you.
Hi,
Annie. You were there a minute ago. Let me turn my volume up a little bit so I can hear you guys. But yes, yeah. I was just waxing about going live on these platforms. Sometimes it's daunting, and you sort of, especially you go live and there's no one there.
Yeah.
No one with me in the studio, and I don't know if anyone's watching this. And
I know it's a bit like talking to a ghost.
yeah, well, yes, yeah. But the thing is, though, even talking to a ghost can be useful. Sometimes you just gotta get it out of you, whether it lands with somebody else. You can't
You've
control
only got to
that.
worry if the ghost talks back.
Yes, yeah, that's very true. But you guys are not ghosts, so you guys can talk back or
How do
talk
you
back all
know?
you want. Tony's been about. He's been a regular back in the day. Shared some great stuff. Remember his pictures in Marrakesh. He's a
good
photographer.
To be back, Steve. That's what I'll say.
Sorry.
It's good to be back. That's what I'll
say. It's good to see you. And you know what? That's what it warms my heart to think that that some things are consistent enough that you can go away and come back and they're there. Sometimes it's a bit boring. I've lived in the States and I came back to the UK a decade later and people are still doing the same old. And I'm like, dang, I'd have thought you'd have changed something by now,
But yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I remember watching a wildlife thing, and it was maybe, and I'm not sure which one of the cold places it was, but they were following this fish that was swimming around a stone, and they said, "Well, we better leave it now," and they went away, and the whole winter transpired, and they went back and they dug down, and they were like, "Hey, the fish is still swimming around the stone against the current." It hadn't moved at all.
Oh my goodness!
Place, and it's like, it's all a matter of perspective, really. We all sit in these square boxes a lot of the time. And
Yes. Yeah. Very deep.
How much we are swimming around the stone or not.
Wow, swimming against the tide. It's a great place. It's a great place to start. They're swimming against the tide.
Nowhere.
But we are creatures of comfort, though. That's for sure. You know, as our psychology likes stasis. You know, things to be static. That's the term stasis means, you know, the same. But the interesting thing is that we fight for sameness in a sea of change. Things are constantly changing. So in a sense, that fight for sameness is always changing, because it's a different.
Sameness can be regarded as stability, though, can't it? Because in an unstable, uncertain, and ever-changing flux that the world is in, certain things that feel familiar, even if they're not necessarily that comfortable, we will cling to those because it feels safe.
Yeah.
I'm a bit worried. I think there's a tidal wave of change coming with AI, and there's a lot of people. I don't know if we all seem to be not younger as we used to be.
That's technically impossible to be younger later.
We're old farts, Tony.
Preach.
I do think that our kind of generation is kind of. I mean, we're very, very lucky because, you know, at least I feel very lucky. Is you know, we've had a lot of opportunity, but I think it's kind of the new AI and everything else, and the way that search works and the way everything else. I think there's an awful lot of talent that's going to waste. But there's also a lot of talent in all the young people who are not getting even a chance.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the problem is, but I think there's a tidal wave of redundancies coming with AI in the next little while, and nobody's really looking at that at all.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be UBI or, you know, something, universal basic, you know, income, or because there's got to be some change in people looking at that, because otherwise what are people going to do?
Yeah. There's a lot in what you said in terms of this tidal wave. When you said tidal wave, I thought you were going to refer to the war, but that's a whole nother.
Oh yeah, that's just messed up my holidays.
Don't talk about the war.
No, we don't mention the war.
I was supposed to be landing in Doha today. No, I was supposed to be in Doha.
Oh. Yeah,
but, not so.
Yeah, my daughter's supposed to be coming from Cambodia to Europe, and her flight got cancelled, and then alternatives didn't show up, and now it's just. But to your point about the wave of change. Oh, and shout out to Laura. Great to see, if you can jump on the link, Laura. It'd be lovely to see you. But thanks for your comments and loving Annie's hat. The thing with the tidal wave of change with AI is that it's not even so much the fact that it's AI. It could, because I think our human history has always been hit by tidal waves of change. You know, whether it was from hunter gathering to agricultural. Right?
I've certainly experienced that my whole life. You know, because I started off with chemistry and film. So.
Yeah,
we've all experienced constant change. I mean, when you look at what we're the product of 2 centuries, and we've seen so much with the technological revolution. For those of us who were born sort of mid to growing towards the end of the 20th century, you know, we have seen and had to adapt to so much change, and we can say, well, we don't really like change, but whether we've wanted to or not, we've actually had to adapt, and we are by default a lot more adaptable than we think we are. It just doesn't feel comfortable, and it just seems to be ramping up. And I know speaking for myself, getting older, technology is actually starting to really scare me, and not in terms of what it can do, but in terms of what I don't understand about what it can do. There's this feeling of being left behind, and you know, at a time in your life where you're actually wanting things to be a little bit less complicated. Everything seems to be getting more so. And, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm just running to catch up with myself, let alone what's new out there.
I think the AI and all that stuff will make things simpler. You know, it's just progress. Will make
Don't you worry about the loss of humanity, though?
Well, it's not the AI that worries me. It's the complete lack of planning for it that seems to be the issue here. Because it's fine if we don't have to do boring stuff, but what are we going to do?
I'm just going to keep writing.
Give it 10 years, and there won't even, you know, there won't even be humans involved in wars. You know, at least on the, you know, it's robotics and everything else is coming through so fast.
Yeah.
What are we to do, Steve?
Well,
what is it? What are we supposed to? We're supposed to play the lute or something. I mean, it's fine if we do, but someone's got to tell us, otherwise we'll all be rubbish by the time we've got nothing to do.
I think about technology, isn't it? I mean, the way things are moving and constantly evolving. We in 5 years' time, we could all be doing something and really enjoying something that we can't even conceive of at the moment.
Yeah,
that may be on its way.
Yeah,
I can't see the politicians getting their heads around it quick enough. That's a big worry for me.
That'll never happen.
The thing that, I mean, I think that ultimately we don't change fast enough evolutionary in our biology, in our psychology, in our relationships, in our social interactions as fast as the technologies that are coming at us.
True.
Before we had tools that we incorporated that informed how we lived. So we learned how to grow plants, we learned how to use machinery to cultivate those plants. We raised domesticated animals for food and for comfort, for social interaction in terms of pets and stuff, So with those things were tools that informed our psychology, who we are as people. We're moving into this space where, sort of the agentic age where things are being done for us, and that's shifting for things being done to us. And to Tony's point, technology does kind of feel a little bit simpler. Everyone's espousing that something is easy to do. We're on platforms that are free, and then we have to wonder, who is the customer? What price are we paying to be on a free platform? And we're seeing a concentration of power to the point where a head of state can have a feeling about something and create a war. Okay, and that's not even me being antagonistic. He's cited as saying, "I felt something, therefore I'm going to bomb these people." Okay, so that's the concentration of power that we find. You got a guy on his way to becoming a trillionaire, right? Who earns, he's got more net worth than countries. So we're shifting our humanity. We know we're now the biggest. We're the top animal. We have no natural predators except ourselves.
One another.
Yes, and that's the challenge that we're facing, I think, Tony, in the terms that there's going to be cannon fodder. There's going to be stratas of society that are just going to be there to serve another strata of society. We've cultivated the land, so we've controlled the land. We've cultivated the animals, so we've controlled the animals. The next layer up is now we have to cultivate the people, right? And that becomes scary because unlike animals, if all the cows got together and revolted, all the chickens got together, numerically speaking, there's a lot of them, right? If they all kind of kind of had, if they developed language, or it's probably a great movie actually. Annie, great movie idea. So so I think that's the challenge, like Laura says, we in the absence of a predator, we'll make one. We do that with countries. That's why a wartime leader tends to have less opposition.
Do you think that as much as people say, I mean, I'd say, and I genuinely say it from my heart, all I want is a peaceful life. Do you think that even though most people say that and mean it, they actually don't know how to live that way?
I'm not sure. I mean, a lot of places crime has gone down because people have got free media and they've got it's to me it's like, yeah, I reckon you could have like another thing that I member of is the Arts and Culture Network, and basically the belief amongst a lot of the people there, certainly the people who run it, is that there is going to be an age of art, and basically that a lot of people would take a lot less to be able to do music or whatever is their thing, and I can't really see how it can be anything other than that. What else? Otherwise, what is anyone going to do?
If it's high, I think of Maslow's hierarchy, right? If you've got the basic essentials covered, then the other parts of the pyramid that speak to sort of our social well-being and ultimately sort of our self-actualization, they all build on the fact that you've got your basic necessities covered. You've got food and shelter, and you've got some sort of safety, psychological, physical, emotional safety. Then from that platform, you're free to go explore things. I mean, I'm moving into a time of life where I'm not earning money. I'm not earning a living to support a family. And that's a very different. I was thinking like the other day. It's a very different approach. It's not a relief necessarily. It's just a different approach when you're doing things for a different reason. So to answer your question about living peacefully, I think we have innately the ability to live well and live peacefully. It's just that the powers that be sometimes jump in and want to shake us up because there's more money to be made when we're shook up. And Laura's in the house. Oh my goodness.
God.
You know how long I've been waiting for this moment?
And it nearly didn't happen, Steve, because I was actually meant to be on a call at 4, and she literally messaged me at 3:30 saying, I'm not going to be back in time. Can I move to tomorrow? So, yeah. And I was thinking, I'm going to miss it again. But the next times I've been sat here and I've gone, damn, it's now gone again. So, but I clearly haven't been in the UK for a little while.
Yes, I can see that.
Obviously, I've been sitting out in my really tropical garden here in Tunbridge Wells. No,
with no water. Where you been?
Yeah, with no water. I now have a shed full of bottled water that would arrive with the pixies in the middle of the night and just dumped on the front path. But yeah, we do have water, thankfully.
Amen.
But yeah, so hello everybody. How are we all?
So you got away before the skies closed, did you?
I did. I was literally away for February, so I'm literally only I was heading to the airport as everything was clearly happening. We didn't know at that point because it was we're now a week on.
Yeah, it's 10 days.
About 9 days, isn't it? So it was literally
in,
that weekend, and that everything kicked off, and you started to know that there was something not right because all the I've been in Thailand basically, so I was coming back the other direction, but all the flights that were going to Doha, all the ones that were, you know, doing the hop back. Fortunately, mine was direct. Although I did notice that we were doing a very spurious path back, sort of obviously avoiding all the airspace that was closed. But of course, they wouldn't tell you anything, but they were just closing. No, we're not going to Doha. We haven't got any updates as to, and people just wandering around going, what's going on? And can't find it, you know, the classic chaos. Because of course they didn't want to say anything until they had more details. But yeah, I did manage to get out of the country, back to, actually, it's quite sunny at the moment, but I believe rain is on its way. I mean,
there you go. So to your question, you said, or Addie's saying, you don't think people know what to do or work with quiet. How was Thailand? Was Thailand quiet for you? Was that
I'll tell you, it's well, Annie's point around, you know, do people know how to live in peace? And I don't think they do. And it's really, really interesting because it came up in conversation on my live last night, talking about, you know, the idea that men stepping up into the space of, you know, being part of supporting women, etc., etc. And it was very much, well, the pain's not bad enough. And I'm going, yeah, but if the gap that they're supposed to step into, nobody knows what that is, then there's nothing to draw them. It, you know, it's the classic NLP push-pull. It depends how you're motivated. And I've been thinking about it today and that whole thing. And I think what you said, Annie, I think is so true. And my comment back last night was, I don't think it's about the pain, and having literally been researching about, you know, the challenges with young men and this sort of crisis of masculinity, etc., etc. You didn't know I was going to take the conversation this way, did you? and the common thread amongst them is you keep telling us we're the problem. You're firing all this stuff at us, but you're not giving us anything that gives us something constructive. So therefore, we're trying to find our place, trying to fit in, and how can we do that? But I think you take that narrative wider, and the reality is people don't know how to live without being busy. They don't know how to sit and be quiet. I can absolutely tell you, I have no issues in sitting on my backside for a month with somebody else making my bed, cooking my food, and looking after me. You know, I had absolutely no issue with that whatsoever. I mean, granted, you know, the Sun Lounger was very good. You know, I could do work from my phone. And again, it was very interesting because Annie knows that I took August off last year, but August I didn't actually leave the country. So I was still in the same time zone. But psychologically, people still said, oh, you are around though, aren't you? You know, they would still be messaging me. Yet when suddenly I've left the country and I'm now on an 8-hour time difference, and I've actually got to psychologically think about, oh, okay, well, actually, if I message now, that's going to be like 2 a.m. So, oh, okay, well, I don't know. And then, of course, by the time they get around to actually messaging you, you know, it's some day later and whatever else. But I think psychologically, we're so used to being in that busy space. We don't know what to do with quiet. We don't know what feeling peaceful actually is. But, you know, I mean, they kept coming up to me. I mean, I didn't speak very much English because most of the people who were there were Finnish, Swedish, Austrian, Germans, French. So, and obviously the Thai people as well. But, you know, hey, that's fine. I did, you know, I watched. It was so quiet, even when the Thai Air Force went over, you know, towards the end. It was like everybody was like so shaken up because that was about the first noise we'd heard in like 4 weeks. Wow. Okay, but yeah, I
do this every year. I go out to Bali for 16 days on retreat, as you probably remember, Laura. But just a couple of nights ago, I booked my flight for this October, and my travel agent, who I've been dealing with for years, was so stressed and so harassed. And I said, you don't sound very happy. He said, well, I'd rather be anything than a travel agent right now because I've got people all over the Middle East that I can't get on flights to come home. And so, but you know, I go out there for that peace and quiet, and I crave that. And by the time I get on the plane to go, I'm almost desperate for it.
Yeah.
And it never lasts for long enough. I mean, after a fortnight, I'm ready to come back because I miss my husband and I miss the critters, and you know, I miss working and doing everything I like to do. But you know, I mean, I'm always anxious to get back to the busyness because that's the most familiar part of my life. So we actually have to work really hard at being quiet and sitting and doing nothing. And it's a mission. It's not. It doesn't come naturally to us anymore. And I think that's because the pace of the world right now is so huge. We do run to catch up. As I said earlier, we talked about, you know, technology and the rush to keep up with that. And that's just part of it. So, you know, slowing down is a conscious, active, heroic choice. And it's really difficult.
But I think you're right. And I think the word choice is so crucial here. It is a choice. I think there's a couple of things that go through my head is that we measure our success by being productive, but we've got this idea that doing lots of stuff is being productive. I mean, the number of conversations I'm having right now about, I'm going, that's brilliant. You've got a 15-page newsletter, and actually, is anybody reading it? How long does it take you to do? You know, it's like that busyness is, you know, it's not. You've ticked a box, but is it really actually relevant? Are we making active choices, or are we just going through the motions because it makes us feel good?
And I think I think we lose the perspective on choice. I think, you know, if you were to sit someone down and say, you have a choice, they'd be gobsmacked and they'd say, well, actually, yes, you're right. But we go through most of our days not even thinking about choice. We just do what we do and what we feel.
We get on that little hamster wheel. Yeah. And we're like,
all right, ladies, let the men speak now. Tony, as you were going to say
as well, Steve.
For a lot of people, it's the money, isn't it? Obviously, because you can't truly relax. You know, if you've got to make bills, I mean, if you're in a society that's putting you saying, you know, you've got to do your tax, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to pay your rent, and either they work. I mean, it's very difficult to, you know, just slow down and be peacefully slowed down if there's not the money there. You know, this is what I'm saying with this tidal wave. What I'm saying is this tidal wave of I'm not that, you know, obviously not the only person, everyone's saying it. There's a tidal wave of redundancies and stuff coming. I take what Laura's saying. I think there's an awful lot of people like doing things like posting on, you know, is that actually doing anything anyway? You know, there's a lot of the people that are doing that have got real skills, but they're not, and they're trying to float them up to the top so they can actually do something real. But then, so I think through all levels of our society, you've got people that are talented, have got, you know, all things that they could, you know, whether it's music or other things. But if they've got them, you're also saying to them, you know, they can't just sleep under a tree, or, you know, if you're going back to analogies of the past, you know, we've all got fences and houses and you know, and a structure to our society, and that structure was, you had a job that paid for these things, and then that made you a citizen that could go freely around their life without being stopped in the street and grabbed by the collar. But there are so many challenges to that now in terms of income, jobs. You know, I think slowing down and not being destructive is really much more natural. But, you know, that does require certain inputs, you know, and certain expectations from society, and it's just not being looked at. There's nothing inherently wrong. You know, if you travel around the world to places where, you know, it's not quite so industrialized, people will just sort of sit down on their haunches all day chatting, and if somebody says, come and labour, they'll get up and go off with them.
And go labour.
You know, it's yeah.
That's the point, though, Tony. Is I think we're so used to that drive of believing that if we do more, we'll get more, we'll get there. That's half the problem, and so we don't know what the right amount is anymore. So, absolutely, to your point, you know, in other countries, you know, they are able to do it. You know, I mean, you can hardly say, "Oh, the UK's economy is exactly, you know, astounding right now." So we can't exactly compare ourselves to other countries who, you know, maybe do have a different lifestyle. I just don't think we can do that anymore.
I was going to say,
I do think the lifestyle that we have here, maybe people don't feel they have a choice, especially if it's whatever they're doing is financially driven.
It's the Maslow thing. If you don't have the basic necessities covered, and you live in a society that you need to cover those basic necessities, then that's going to be the driver for your behavior first and foremost.
Yeah.
Peace and quiet feels luxurious when you're trying to hustle to pay rent or to pay bills and stuff. I was
guilty about taking time out.
Yeah, I was going to touch on the point that you started with, Laura, about your drop-in or your call live yesterday about men, the masculinity thing, and then you mentioned that the pain was they're being set on.
So how the conversation went along the line is so what through all this listening work I've been doing. So you know, so it's become really, really clear that there's this irony. If we want women and young women to feel safe in this world, we have to make men and young men feel safe first, which it feels like counterintuitive, but that's the reality. So
as well, not even first, as well, I think.
Absolutely. And because we cannot tackle VOG, violence against women and girls, unless we start actually speaking to young men. So that's how this kind of has all been this sort of this context behind it. And, you know, so a couple of the guys on the call were sort of talking about the fact that, well, because what surprised us all is all the women in these men's lives were saying, yeah, I'll get them on the bystander training. You know, I think it's really good. They'll get it. And yet, actually, despite the fact that I could fill a room of, you know, 3 times over of women to do women's voices and understand about, you know, what makes women and young women feel safe, getting the men in the room and the young men in the room, and that was supposedly far easier because I didn't physically have to get them in a room. Their partners wanted it, but could we actually get them in the room? No. And so what is that disconnect? And part of it is, you know, don't want to be seen to be stepping forward. They don't really, you know, this is a challenge to their masculinity. Don't want to be seen vulnerable, all manner of different things. But you know, and I think what the other guys were saying was for them, calling somebody else's behavior out, they didn't want to be the one kind of effectively putting their head above the parapet and going, boy, that's really not on. And so it kind of went on, and because it wasn't painful enough, they weren't going to change their behavior necessarily, not necessarily these guys, but that was the conversation they were having. And I said, well, is it that, or is it that because we don't know what good looks like, and it does come back to some of the choice thing that we've been talking about, because we haven't got that, then, and there's not enough of them, because, you know, we go, well, you know, Andrew Tate is such a bad influence. Well, actually, the research says only 13% of men and young men actually, you know, have anything positive to say about Andrew Tate, and only half of those will actually believe in what he says about women. So what is happening to the 87% of young men and men who don't believe in that, but clearly not visible enough to be making young women and women feel safer? And so
I'm going to interrupt you just for a second. Here's the question on that thread. and Tony can help with this as well. I mean, we're not young men, so to Annie's point, we cross a century. We were adults at the millennium, as opposed to sort of being pre or post. So we've seen a lot of things change already, in society, in technology, in how we conduct ourselves with other people. The gentleman, that kind of that mindset is probably lost on a lot of young people today. But my question was, what is it that young men or men in general need to feel in order to show up and be visible without being cajoling from a female partner that says, I saw a podcast, I saw an event that I think you should go to. I've had that dialogue before as well. I'm thinking, why are you telling me to go to the event? Why can't I tell me to go to the event? What's stopping me from showing up for myself without it feeling like it's misogynistic or I'm trying to be, all brash and that sort of thing? How can I show up and how can I be visible on my terms?
Exactly. And that's the big question. And for me, the guys so behind the scenes, I've created, basically I'm solving the problems of, the NHS and the policing situation right now. But, that's just by the by.
I think.
But I basically built this whole listening infrastructure. And the way it literally works is I've got 6 men's networks coming together. And so those who actually came in the room were recommended, if they hadn't seen the original advert, came because one of their peers is part of the men of the 6 groups. So whether it was, the guy who coaches Tunbridge Wells Youth Football Club, it was mates of his. So it's a bit like years ago with the Drink Drive campaign. It was mates telling mates. So we know that will make the difference. Mates telling mates, as opposed to, effectively women nagging their partners to go. But it's getting sufficient momentum behind that. But I think with young men, it's I don't know whether you've seen the new Ross Kemp Lost Boys Deadly Men series, but some of the young men in there, they openly talk about the fact that they just don't feel they fit in anywhere. They don't know where they fit in, so it becomes really easy to find a space in gangs. And I think we as adults spend too much time looking at youngsters through an adult lens rather than listening to them. So last week I was at a conference courtesy of Sussex Police, and it was very interesting. We had the Right Honourable Stuart Lawrence, their younger brother to Stephen Lawrence, and his comment was, we're having our version of a house party and we're inviting them to our house party. I mean, they aren't going to want to listen to our music. We have to go to their house party. And I said, it's a classic. And we always thought we have to meet people where they're at rather than expect them to meet us where we would like them to be. And that is the difference. And I think that is why there is so much disconnect within the country. And in that disconnect, it could be at a personal level, it could be at an organizational level, it could be a systemic level, or a community level. It's exactly the same thing. And it comes back to your point around Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that if they haven't got those basic things, and for a 15, 16, 17-year-old, right now, a lot of them, and the boys more so than the girls, are going, okay, well, you've made this right mess of the world, my people who come before me, but equally, the leap from where I am to where I need to be because of AI, all the rest of it, is so huge. I don't even know where to start. What do I do? And in fact, that's the conundrum I will be spending the evening working on, as to how do we engage our young men so that we can help them with identity, fitting in, and belonging in the local community, so we can reduce antisocial behaviour. I mean, you know, who knew?
Tony had a point. I don't know if he still remembers it or it's
was well. I think a lot of it has. I think a lot of attitudes have changed in our lifetimes. Certainly, the kind of conversation that I'm not taking plaudits for this, but I actually used to find quite shocking when I went to college. You know, I was, you know, and people, you know, guys would be talking about girls and they'd be talking about them like they're food. You know, and I was just confused by the whole thing. I'm honestly, and then I found some of it. But if anybody spoke like that now, there would be a problem, because like everybody knows that's wrong, right? So, you know, the education must have worked to some extent over this period of time, that everybody now knows that certain things are just not. You know, if you think it, you know, you can't say it. So presumably the people whoever's left are all going down the same rabbit hole through social media. But you know, it's a small, much smaller segment, and I think that's why you perhaps have a standoff between, you know, people go, well, that's not me. I'm not one of them. You know, I'm happy to, you know, to take. I mean, a lot of the young people I know are extreme. You know, they're so different. The young kids that I know are so respectful, you know, amongst each other. You know, they're all, you know, they're much more. And it's not really innocent. They're much. I don't know what it is, but you know, in my day, if you slept in the same room with the opposite sex, something would be, you know, the guy. But they're all completely happy with it. You know, they're just like, oh, we're all just sleeping in the same room. You know, big deal. You know, they're seeing it in a way. I'm not sure it's going to make enough people in the future, but you know, there has been change, and I do think that fraction, you know, segmentation of, you know, people that have been influenced to the better, who consider themselves the mainstream, really want to be associated with the others, even if they even communicate with them. So I'm not sure how that, you know, that works.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I was talking about young people being different today. I'm thinking of, I've shown clips of old TV shows to my daughters. No sexual innuendo, but just politically correct, you know, politically incorrect TV shows that we grew up with.
Yeah, and
I would nostalgically find them funny. I wouldn't find the content necessarily, and the content is disrespectful. I'm not even going to mention the shows, because I think some of you guys.
I know what you mean.
Right?
I'm with you. You laugh because it was part of your past, and it kind of was funny, but now it really properly isn't, and like your kids won't talk to you if you do that.
Exactly. So there is that.
We'll make it a bit of peace.
There is that shift of awareness, and again, to Laura's point, I mean, that shift of awareness either brings more things to the forefront, but also creates a more of a darker side, because people will now go into more closeted spaces, darker spaces, because there's more of an awareness to something coming up. So, you know, it's naive for us to think that we will ever eradicate anything, because it's always going to be a shadow side to our nature, right? The work that we need to do is either shine the light on that shadow so that people can find a choice, and even in that metaphor, shine a candle. Don't shine a freaking spotlight, because you you eradicate, you alienate the people that you're trying to reach. And to your point about meeting them where they're at, if it requires a candlelight to get someone from a dark space, then use a candlelight. Don't use a friggin' floodlight, and so to that point, that's important in terms of just understanding that there's a journey to take. I do think that the way, our media, our social media, and our desire to be seen in a certain way creates a problem for how we truly show up. I've been posting every day for this month on Instagram, and I've been sharing some of the stuff in LinkedIn, and it's into your point about being productive and what it means. Part of it is just for my own well-being. I like the regimen of doing it. So I'm looking for things that are not tied to an outcome as opposed to tying it to an input. And then this environment is started by just me being on. Tony joined just before we went live, and then I went live just with me on the screen. And this environment where you actually scratch the surface. We could be on this is not a webinar. This is not something that's pre-recorded. This is turning on the camera and people showing up when they can. And we talked about, so the longevity of it means that people show up when they can show up. They know it's here. And that, I think, to Laura's work is important, because you never know what input is going to flip is going to be the tipping point for somebody. So you've got to show up consistently. You've got to show up in an authentic or a true way, so that when they lurk around the periphery and go, what's this men's thing about? When they dismiss it the first time and they come back around again and still see it there, still see the fish swimming around the rock. I mean, it all ties in. The fish is still swimming around the rock, even whether I'm there or not. And then when I go away, I know the fish is still swimming around the rock. So when I leave a group, knowing the group is still going to be there, when I'm in a place that I'm ready for it, I can show up and it will be there for me. Men, we generalizing here. Men's journey is changed, I guess. I mean, I changed for the best. I've changed for the good, I think. The misogynistic, your stereotypical, middle-aged white male persona. That needs to shift. It's not the majority thinking. It's not the only way to live. It's not supporting lots of people or groups, and we need to be okay with the risk of meeting somebody where they are at versus where we want them to be. A lot of society wants us only to engage on our terms. I mean, even like AI now, AI is sycophantic. I mean, it's like it'll tell you what you want to hear, and you can set it up to tell you what you want to hear. So in essence, it's only good AI when it tells you something nice.
You can set it up to be argumentative, and I've got one that I've set up to push back on everything.
Just to keep you real.
Yeah. Don't use it very much.
It's the Turing test, right? Or Ex Machina. I mean, we had movies that were telling. We have dystopian stories, and again, I'm leaning on Annie as a writer. In a creative space where you're putting things out into the world on paper that conjure images for the reader. It's massive responsibility, and it's a massive skill in terms of how you articulate that. We see stories being penned in terms of sort of near future or apocalyptic And we're in the 2026, for goodness sake. I mean, those numbers in our movies back in the day.
Yeah, we've outlived it all, haven't we? Well, I tend to write stuff that's more focused on positive outcomes, because I think, you're right, there is a responsibility, and I feel that more keenly now than I did when I started, because the world is in such a mess now. I think people are desperate to have some form of happy ending or some form of positive outcome. So it's important to raise the issues that I raise within my novels about resilience, about friendships, about the value of relationships, and the challenges to starting again in later life after trauma. But I think people need to know that there can be a positive outcome. So even occasionally, like the novels that aren't the Teapot Cottage novels, the other genre, one of which you now have to read, is about some fairly icky stuff. But I think at the end of the day, even though that icky stuff is real, I think there is a way of putting a positive spin on it, as if to give people the message, look, it's not the end of the world as we know it. You can come back from this. You can rebuild your life. You can do something different and positive, no matter how young or old you are. And even if you're dying of a brain tumor, then there are things you can do to improve the lives of others before you shuffle off the mortal coil. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where the responsibility lies now in whatever we're writing. It's giving people hope. It's leaving them with a little bit of hope, because, we've all walked out of movies and we thought, oh, God, that was bloody awful, because the ending was just the worst thing ever. And we can imagine it for ourselves, and it doesn't make for a comfortable night's sleep after something like that. Mm. So I think there is a duty of care, I suppose you'd call it, to kind of leave things not in a god-awful state when you've put the last full stop at the end of the last chapter in the book.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. I'm coming up to the top of the hour. Actually, the US has moved their clocks forward. So I'm up. I've overrun another call that I used to have an hour later. It's now an hour earlier. But I want to go around. I want to go around the room. I normally sort of wrap around the hour. So I want to go around the room with some final comments from all of our guests. Laura, it's been a real pleasure to see your tan.
After you keep inviting me every week, going, when are you coming? When are you coming? When are we going to catch up? I don't know. It's like,
you're back now. It's great. It's absolutely great to see you. But
it's lovely to see everybody. I'm sorry I couldn't come with a hat.
and it's been
standard now,
and it's been sporting that headwear, which has been great. So closing thoughts.
Quite an in-depth discussion today. These things always go in directions you don't anticipate.
No tattoos mentioned or nail polish.
Oh, it's not too late. We have minutes.
Well, actually, Mr. Whiskey.
Tony, what colour's your nail polish then?
Tony.
Not Tony.
Great to see you, Tony, as well, buddy. It's been a while, and how's business?
Yeah, Steve, thanks for all the invites. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're still here, like you say.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, well, I'm just that fish swimming around the rock every Wednesday. I swim around that rock.
It's just about fishing around a rock.
Well, at least it's a harmless enterprise, isn't it? I mean, it might be boring, but you're not upsetting yourself or anyone else. At any given time, you can say, I'm sick of this rock. I'm going to go and find another one. Go and swim around that.
There you go. There's a lot to be said for sameness, and there's a lot to be said for resilience amongst change. When things around you change, then in order to keep what you know the same, you have to work. So I get that. I don't like sameness for the sake of staleness. That's a different thing. You atrophy if you.
But not all change is good, is it? So hanging on to what's familiar and what we're used to, that sameness. Sometimes that is what keeps people sane.
Sane. The same keeps you sane.
Yeah, I can do.
That's true. Well, yeah, it's that certainty need, but then we also have a need for that uncertainty. There's that variety. There's
The balance,
there's
isn't it?
your
It's like everything
retreats.
else, the yin yang. Everything has to
Yes.
be in balance. The
There's
body, the mind, the life situation, work life, everything.
Yeah.
When the
Yeah.
balance goes out of kilter, everything starts to hit a wall.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes the new wall that it hits brings around another sense of change, agency, accomplishment. So I know some of the hardships that I've gone through. Even when I say it, I don't think now on the other side of a hardship, it doesn't feel as hard.
Yeah.
But in the moments, they were hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to sort of persist or stay in it to get to the other side of it. And then you realize that, like you said, it didn't kill me.
Well, someone once put it really well, and they said to me, life is like, when these piles of poo happen, you can't find a way round or over or under it. Sometimes you actually have to go right through that to get to the other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is another side of it. And
Yes,
that's what you've just got to stay focused on.
Yeah. 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 The fact
Which
that you
goes back to what I've said before about writing about happy endings, or at least satisfactory endings that are, you can live with them.
I think the AI coming down the street is the big pile of poo. And at the moment, no one's looking at that pile of poo. And yet we're all on the same trajectory.
Depends how hard it is. Do we just need our hands, or do we need spades and pickaxes?
I don't know. I leave it to imagination. I think how will you all get through it? But the problem to me is just that it doesn't seem to be like the politicians. I think, as a society, we need to start thinking about this really quickly.
We again, let's segue into probably another. They can try. We can, if you're back again next week, we can continue that, because it's like how early do you prepare for something that's down the pike, and can you prepare too early or too late when it's just the right time? And you're on track. I mean, there's a speed of progress that is exponential still within technology spaces.
And then, with that speed and something coming towards you up the pike, it can change before it actually gets to you. So I think there is a danger in trying to be too prepared too early, because what you think is coming could be vastly different from what it looks like further down the line.
Very true. Very true. You're assuming where it is, it's going to stay the same. And if it's changing as it comes towards you, you guys are so smart. So smart and insightful. And I hope young people watching this on a replay or through LinkedIn or wherever the algorithm sends it.
In 100 years' time.
In 100 years' time, I'll put in the capsule. I'll tell them,
they
man.
found how to
What's this
I would not
virtual tour thing?
100 years from now, I really would not.
Yeah, everything's virtual. What do you mean virtual tour? You mean a virtual?
Yes.
Nothing's
No,
real.
I mean, sorry. I did have a play with that the other day, and I had the headset on, and I was in a virtual tour, and then I had the screens up inside the virtual tour, giving a demo, and then I stopped. I was just like completely confused. It worked. I was just too confused about what was going on.
Inception to
Well,
a
let
whole
me
new
reassure
level.
you that everything is real here. There is nothing virtual here at all.
But it is very good. You put that headset thing on, and then you do Google Earth. It's like a plugin for Google Earth, like an app, and you literally just fly all around the world and settle down. I retook a photograph on Chelsea Bridge, exactly framed up, looking at Battersea Power Station, the same way. And I got to fly up and then down and land on my own roof. I can get from, it was Mount Fuji to my roof in like 3 minutes. Honestly. And then,
I got to.
It's huge.
I have to follow Tony for those tours. That's one way to get home from Doha, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the other thing is when you actually do start putting information and looking at the 3D world in a 3D way, it's totally different, you know. So you're looking at that map that's unwrapped, and you start thinking about this country being, you know, countries being where they are and where they are relative to each other. It's completely different, you know, than when you're flying it in a 3D world.
Yeah,
I'd lose myself later. It's just like I put them on and I'm like, oh, I wonder what, you know, this is like or that's like. And after a while you go, okay, I'm, you know, Africa and, you know, west coast of Africa, home's north, you know. You just, you know, it's just a little bit different to what the maps are, you know. You just
that is, again, there's some things in there in terms of it's one thing losing people in society, in real society. When we lose people in virtual societies, then that's a whole another
all this is making
these things are not costly. So I think the thing going forwards is UBI and things that keep people entertained, whether that be music festivals, you know, all kinds of activities could be put on. It could become an amazing art-filled, beautiful world whilst the robots are doing the work. But not if one person's got all the money and the rest of us have to eat each other.
Yeah. Those are two movies, The Matrix or Hunger Games. On that note, thank you, Laura. A pleasure. Annie, I'm looking forward to the book. I'm gonna be. I said I'm gonna kick that off in Jamaica. I'll send you a picture of me on a sun lounger with the book.
When are you going?
I'm looking to be out there around sort of May, June.
Okay.
So
that'll come around fast.
Not too long. I've put the book back in its envelope and I put on the cover, Read in Jamaica. So I'm definitely going to do that. Speaking of sort of changing perspectives and lives, I'll catch up with you, Laura, on a DM. We'll have a deeper chat. All right, Tony, thanks again. Laura, take care. This has been it. See you next. I'm back here next week, same time, water cooler. All right, and thanks everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.